Seattle House Mafia.
Hey, it's Phil from Seattle House Mafia, coming at you from the Seattle House Mafia Green Room, also known as my wife's art studio. I've been wanting to do a headphone review for a long time, and a headphone review coming from the perspective of a DJ that's playing out in either moderately loud or very loud sound environments. And finally, I was able to get my shit together, and I actually had some trouble figuring out the structure of this review because there's 8 sets of headphones I wanted to share. And then I talked to my partner Sangdo, also another Seattle House Mafia member, and he said straight up, like, he would have loved to have a scorecard when he was first beginning DJing, where he could just run down the scorecard and understand how different headphones scored in different areas. So that's what I'm gonna do. So here's how this is gonna go. I essentially have a scorecard that tells the price, talks about sound quality, comfort, isolation, build quality, aesthetics, which we'll get to, and then a total points, and you can get up to 10 for each headphone. And then after I go through the scorecard for each of these, I'm gonna choose the best all around, the best bang for the buck, the best on a budget, and then if I have time, a little bonus headphone that I wanna share with you. The first thing I'm gonna say is this review will be for everybody. So I know I said performing moderately to very loud sound environments, but I also think this would be valuable for the bedroom DJ or the DJ producer or the DJ that's, just starting out and doesn't know where to start as far as, DJ gear goes, because headphones, regardless of where you are in your journey, you're gonna need a decent set of headphones. And a lot of that's gonna be driven by your budget, but there's so many within each budget category. I'll hopefully help nail that down a little bit for you. With that, let's start with the Sony 7506. This was my very first DJ headphone, not this pair specifically, but I started with the 7506, and because at the time in the 90s, there really wasn't like a specific DJ headphone. It was more like there were studio monitors that DJs were using as headphones. The Sony 7506 being really the primary one in the US. One thing you'll notice with this is I have different ear pads on, because probably the biggest complaint for me personally of the 7506 is the stock ear cups that it comes with are made of this material that if you're sweaty, or if you have stubble, or God forbid you're sweaty and have stubble like somebody, within a couple of DJ gigs, this pad will break down and leave little black bits all over your beard, all over your shirt, all over your girlfriend when you give her a hug. They cheaped out on the ear pads, and that's just a given. So just know that. So the thing with the 7506 that I do, they're about $100. Sometimes you can find them a little cheaper, is I always add the Brainwaves perforated ear pads, which are about another $20. So all up, this set of headphones is about $120. Let's start scoring it. So on sound quality, I'm gonna give it a 1, and you'll understand that more why I say that, but it's a very neutral sound. I think it's a great sounding headphone. I don't necessarily think it's the best sounding headphone for loud environments. And part of that is just because it's a 40 mil driver, where a lot of DJ headphones now have 50 mil drivers. So you get a little bit more of that bass kick. And so I'm gonna give it a 1 on the sound. Comfort, definitely a 2, super comfortable. Isolation, I'm also gonna give it a 1. It just, even with the aftermarket ear cups, it just doesn't isolate that much. And when you're in a loud sound environment, and I know everybody who's played in one understands this, like, whether you play open ear or you're playing in your headphones, you want to be able to isolate what's in your headphones, because a lot of times monitor setups are so loud and so blary, or the DJ before you just had them cranked, or there's subs right on the floor that's kind of throwing you off. You want to be able to isolate what's in your headphones when you're cueing and when you're mixing. I probably mix about 50% of the time fully in headphones, and then I'll check the sound, either pull one ear off or pull them both off. If I'm playing vinyl, I'd say it's 50-50. So isolation is super important. Build quality on these things, I'm gonna give it a 1. My first pair was from Japan, and it lasted for 20 years. I have like 3 pairs of these now for the studio for our podcast, and I've already broken one of them. And so it just seems like when they move their production from Japan to Taiwan, the build quality on these just got a little bit more janky. So 1 on the build quality. The aesthetics, I'm going to say 2. We'll talk more about aesthetics in a second. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 total points for the Sony 7506. The next headphone, as old school as the 7506 is in the States, this is and was the headphone to go to in the UK and Europe. This is the Sennheiser HD25. And what's cool about this headphone is its tech hasn't changed. There is a plus version now. I don't know the difference because I'm not a Sennheiser guy, but this is the original HD25. Everything on here is interchangeable. So you can essentially rip a cord and replace it. You can replace the ear pads. Everything's replaceable. And in fact, this pair is my other business partner, Paul Velocity. This is his original pair of DJ headphones, and it's like 25 years old. And I think he's replaced the ear cups and one of the cables, but that's it. Like, they're great headphones. So let's talk through that. The sound on these is awesome. I love how the HD25 sounds. So I'm going to give that a 2. Comfort, I'm going to say 2. They're super lightweight. Isolation, 1 at best. You know, the difference between the 7506s kind of are over the ear, where these sort of sit on top of the ear. And I think in a weird way, this might provide a little more isolation. I just don't like that pressure right on my ear. I'd really like the headphone to be over the ear, kind of important to me. The build quality, I think, on the HD25s is also very solid. So I'm going to give that a 2. Here's where we talk about aesthetics. This headphone, for as much praise as I give it, looks really dumb on me. And I think it looks really dumb on guys with big bald heads. So, you know, and if you're a DJ and you have a big bald head and you use the HD25s, God bless you. But I bought this particular headphone twice and sent it back because I just cannot get over how it looks on me playing out. It'd be like one of those headphones that I might wear playing at home, but I can't get down with wearing these out in public. They just look silly on me. And it's more of a me problem, not an HD25 problem. So I'm giving the HD25 0 on the aesthetics from my own bias. So 2, 4, 6, 7. So a tie. We have 7 total points for the HD25. The next headphone is a company called AIAIAI. And I'm only going to say AIAIAI once, and then I'm just going to call it the AI because their name drives me nuts. This is the TMA1. This was the first gen. So I was an early adopter of the TMAs when these first came out, and I love the aesthetic. This is like this rubberized flat black coating. It's modular, so you could choose kind of which ear cups you wanted. It's super adjustable. It's understated, but like in a very cool understated way. Yeah, I thought they looked so cool. And so I got 1 pair, and then one of the drivers went out, and it was like a week outside of their warranty. And the bummer was that these guys didn't want to give me a break. So I ended up buying another pair. And so I had 1 pair with a broken driver. I buy another pair. This is actually the pair with the dead driver. I buy another pair, and about 4 months into the warranty of the other pair, I pull it out of the studio one day, and the rubber coating has become like this super, like almost like it was dipped in honey, this super sticky. Basically, the coating had broken down. It wasn't something I could clean off. So I was like, surely these guys are going to give me some love and give me a new set of headphones. I own 2 pair. They screwed me on the first pair, but you know, they got to do me right this time. No, wasn't covered. They blamed me. They said it was on me. And actually, if you look online, other people had the same thing happen. So I had a really shitty customer experience with these guys. And that's why I'm not talking about the new generation of like the TMA2s. They also have a Bluetooth one that one of my DJ buddies really likes, God. He plays with the wireless ones. My issue is that these guys did not take care of me from a customer service standpoint, and I vowed to never spend money on their headphones again. If I got a new pair with a letter of apology, I would definitely try them out, but let's be honest, that's never gonna happen. So TMA1, AIAIAI, let's score those guys. Sound, oh, by the way, the sound on these is fucking awful. Like, these are hands down the worst sounding headphones on the table. I was using them a lot in a band at the time, which was, I was right in front of the drummer, so I didn't notice how bad they were. But yeah, the sound on this first gen is just awful. They fixed it apparently, but so I'm gonna say the sound is 0. Comfort is 2. Isolation, I'm gonna give it a 1. Build quality, I'm gonna have to say 0 again, because, you know, the 2 pairs I went through. And then I think the aesthetic is super cool. So gonna give those guys a 5. Okay, next set. Another kind of retro set of headphones, like the HD25s and like the 7506s. The Audio-Technica ATH-M50s have been out for a long time, but you can still buy them as they come. So they've been putting these out for a long time. These are interesting because these were part of the movement going from studio monitors being used for DJs to actual DJ specific headphones. So these have a 50 mil driver. These came out right around the same time the Sony, I think they're called the Sony MDR-700s, the silver Sonys. Everybody bought them and then they all broke because they had this shitty hinge on them. So I think the cool thing was they both had 50 mil drivers. They came with a much more sort of intentional ear pad for isolation for loud sound environments. So it really was a step forward in the right direction from a DJ headphone standpoint. But I don't love these, and partially because they're white, partially because they're really uncomfortable on my head. But let's just say sound quality, I mean, actually, for what they are, they hold up. They still stand up when I listened to them just the other day. Comfort, these things are so uncomfortable. They pinch my head. There's like these weird corners. They just are not made for me. And they swivel, which you think would be good, but it makes it worse. So I give that a 0. Isolation, I'm going to give them a 2. Much better than the originals, the HD25s and the 7506. Build quality, I've never lived with these, but I'm going to say 1 because it's a lot of plastic. Aesthetics, I'm also going to say 1, partially because they're white, which I'm not. Sangdo loves white. He wears white headphones. He wears a white coat. He drives a white car. He looks great in white. White is not my thing. But also they just look a little dated. So aesthetics, I'm going to say they're a good size, but the aesthetics is dated on those. So that is 6. Next headphone is, see if I can get the name right the first time. This is the Pioneer HDJ-X10. These are actually my newest headphones. These are the headphones I've been playing out with for the last year. And in general, I really like them. They are $370, $350, depending where you can find them. So they're far and away the most expensive out of the group, which I think is a bit of a downside. But besides that, I really like build quality, sound. The other critique I have about these is I feel like they turn down the highs just a little bit. I don't need bright highs, but I feel like I like highs that sparkle a little bit. And I feel like the highs on these particular headphones are a little subdued and the bass response is so punchy. But for the environment, like what I'm talking about, playing in a loud sound environment, they're fantastic, right? So just a little critique on kind of how they're EQ'd. There's definitely a little sound coloring in them, but I know people love them and they work fantastic in those loud sound environments. So the HDJ-X10s by Pioneer, I'm going to say sound, I'm going to give them a 1.5. And I'm not saying they sound worse than the Audio-Technica, but I'm saying that there's just a color to the sound. And I actually think they sound better than the Audio-Technica, but for what they are, for the money you pay, there's just a little bit clipped on the highs for me personally. Comfort 2 for sure. These were very tight when I first got them, and they have just like kind of molded to my big head. So they're super comfortable. Even though they're not the lightest of the bunch, they feel super good on my head. I'm really happy with how comfortable they are. The isolation, it's the best in the bunch for sure. Build quality, I'm going to say a 2 as well. There's a lot of metal on this, you know, where you find other, and it's probably why it's so expensive. They really did use kind of premium materials on here. I've dropped these a couple of times and they still look new. The other thing they do, apparently this is antibacterial, some sort of microfiber, that keeps the gunk away. And so that also probably helps them look new, but they still feel new after a year of like playing out with these things. So, and then aesthetics, I think the aesthetics are solid on those. They're the right size for me. They feel good. My head doesn't look super big in them, and I can't complain. So 9.5 for those guys. Next up, the V-Moda. These are the Crossfade M100s. I was super excited to try these out. I actually ordered these for myself, and I thought I was going to keep them. First thing that happened when I plugged them in, there's a short in the cable. Actually, there's a short in the connection here because both cables have a little short. I checked my mixer. I was going crazy. I thought, oh my God, is my headphone jack going out in my mixer? Nope. It was it's the actual headphone himself. So I bought these brand new. They came broken. They're going back as soon as I'm done with this review, unfortunately. So put that on the side for a second. I really love the look of these. There's a lot of metal on here. They feel really hardy, which is cool. They're comfortable, they sound great, they isolate well. And if you were to ask somebody from V-Moda, they'd say they're super robust, they don't break down, blah, blah, blah. Well, two things happened. When I started looking into, after I had the bad connection here, I started looking at forums, and it turns out there's a lot of little screws on these things. What happens is these screws back out. And I don't know if this is still the case, but a few months back, I was talking to a friend of mine, and she had a pair of these where she lost a couple of these screws, and V-Moda would not replace the screws. Like, just send the girl a screw packet, They wouldn't replace the screws. So she ended up buying another pair because she loves them so much, and I think she may have broke that other pair too. So I don't trust the build quality or the quality control on these. As much as I wanted to love them, I don't. So the V-Moda Crossfade M100s are about $230. I've seen them as low as like 170. They go on sale once in a while. But based on my experience, they're not worth it. I would say the sound is great. I'm going to call it a 2. The comfort, super comfortable. Isolation is also a 2. Build quality is a 0. And I'd say the aesthetics are a 2. So these guys get an 8. I think that's pretty generous considering they don't work. The next set of headphones is the Pioneer HDJ-X5, and these are the little brothers of the X10. The fundamental difference here is $370, $100, right? And also, there's a lot more plastic. They're definitely not, they definitely don't sound as good. And I don't think they isolate quite as well. Just everything's a little bit cheaper on the build. However, they sound pretty damn good for $100. I think the sound from these compared to the 7506, I prefer how these sound. I say all that, and Oscar P, who actually came through the studio, he plays everywhere, and these are his headphone of choice. And I've actually talked to several other DJs that use these 5s just because bang for the buck, the pricing, they still have that Pioneer aesthetic and that Pioneer sound. I mean, they're, I guess, a pretty good deal. So the sound, I'm going to give it a 1. I don't think it sounds as good as the 10s. I'm still feeling a little bit bad about the 1.5 on the 10s. It's the sound to price comparison. Anyway, I'll let it go. The comfort is a 2. The isolation, I'm going to say 1. Build quality, I'm going to call it a 1. There's just a lot more plastic on that, or on this one. The aesthetic, I'm going to give it a 2. So that's going to be 7. Here's the dark horse. This is the one, I guess it's OneOdio. I don't know if I'm saying it right. It's like audio, but with an O. Funny story about this. So I had Cole Lawton and Sensei. Cole's from the UK. Sensei is an old West Coast house musician legend. They came through the studio, did an interview, played a set, and I was watching Cole. He's a headphone mixer, and he's also like this prolific producer. So he spends a lot of time in headphones. And he was wearing these, and I had assumed that these were some super fancy Euro producer headphones that he uses for DJing as well. And so, probably out of my price range, right? So I asked him about it before I decided to pull everything together. And he's like, no, man, these are OneOdios. They're like $40. And sure enough, I ordered these off Amazon for $32. So what an amazing little headphone for $32. And when I plugged them in, I was just delighted by the sound quality. I did not expect they would sound as good as they do. And I think some of it is because they really focused on some depth in the ear cups from the drivers. I don't know what they did, but for 32 bucks, like even if you're a pro DJ, even if you don't trust the build, what a great set of headphones to have in your backup, you know? And I think Cole and his friends, like this is their go-to now in the UK. So OneOdio, $32. Sound, I'm gonna give it a 1. It's as good as almost anything in this bunch besides the more premium headphones. Comfort, it's a 2. Isolation, I'm gonna give it a, I mean, it's decent. Yeah, it's like the Pioneer. And then build quality, I'm gonna give it a 1. I'm kind of giving it the benefit of the doubt. There's a lot of plastic. It's made in China, but I've not heard anything bad about the build. I'm skeptical though. I've only had them for a little while. And then I think the aesthetics, you know, I thought they were like $800 headphones, so they get a 2. So a tie with the Pioneers. All right. So what I want to do now is just, I tallied all this up. I want to just give you my vision of what the best all around is, the best bang for the buck, and then the best on a budget. So I'm going to say best all around for me today is the Pioneer HDJ-X10. I say that, but I think they're overpriced. I think they're probably somewhere between $50 and $70 more than they need to be. But what do you expect? It's Pioneer. They charge a premium. They can. People pay it. I obviously did. But I do think, I think that's the downside. I think they're too expensive. I think if they were $300, slam dunk, we'd have no issue. And I probably wouldn't complain about the tuning either. Okay, so Pioneer, best all around. Best bang for the buck. I know you think I'm going to say the Sony 7506 because I have so much history with it, but I'm actually going to say the Sennheiser HD25s. I think it edges out the sound of the 7506. I think the build quality is a little bit better. The only issue I have with them is a personal issue, is the aesthetic on those things. And then best on a budget, you know, I was kind of torn. It was a sort of race between the Pioneer HDJ-X5s, the OneOdios, and maybe the 7506s, but I don't know, $32, you can't go wrong. Best on a budget, I think you'll be fine. I think even if you're, you know, whether you're a beginner or a professional, even if they only last a year, it's 32 bucks and they're pretty great for what you get. So best on a budget is the OneOdios. And then I just had one little bonus. So there is a dude named Zeos who is on YouTube. He's an audiophile. He tests out amps, he tests out headphones. And he was the one that introduced me to the MDR-900ST, which is essentially the Japanese market only cousin of the 7506. My personal experience is the sound, even with the stock, these are not stock ear pads, but even with the stock ear pads, the sound is superior to the 7506. I know that might seem like sacrilege to my 7506 loyalists, but yeah, it's a little more honest, it's a little more detailed. And then what Zeos did is he actually put on these $65 Yaxi pads, which have 2 different types of material. And it is like, these are hands down my favorite headphones to listen to music to. So I know this is about DJing in a loud environment, but listening to music in these things is such a pleasure. And so they're a little more expensive too. So all up, I think the headphones are about 140, and then the ear pads are another 60, 65 bucks. So you're going to spend 200 bucks, but these are something special. The other thing I'll warn you about is they don't have the adjustable, you can't screw off the 1/4 inch and have the 1/8 inch to plug into the computer. So you're going to need an adapter. But I think if you're into finding something kind of off the beaten path that just sounds amazing, these 900s are killer. Anyway, that's it. That was my little bonus. So that's it. I hope that was helpful. If you have questions, please leave comments. Feel free to reach out. I'm happy to talk headphones or any other DJ gear. I wish I would have had a video like this when I was beginning my DJ journey. I probably still, just based on the timing, would have ended up with the 7506s, but I probably would have spent a lot less time going back and forth with different new headphones that came out and then getting disappointed or breaking them or whatever. So hopefully it was helpful. You know, keep checking in on the channel. We're always doing new stuff. We're always launching new content, new interviews, and have a great night.
Seattle House Mafia.